Good evening and welcome to Hendricks Hall for our 8th episode of Sports Hour, 8th episode of the semester. I am Kevin Syracuse with Dustin Herrera, who is usually behind the camera, but he's coming on tonight to talk some hockey. So Dustin, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. I'm doing good. I have a lot of hockey to talk about.
All right, so before we get to the hockey, for Fredonia sports, speaking of hockey, the Fredonia men's hockey team lost both of their season opening games against Morrisville this weekend, losing 4-3 in overtime Friday and 4-3 Saturday. Ryan Dunner scored 2 goals in Friday's loss, while Malcolm Arsenault scored 2 in Saturday's loss. The Blue Devils will look to get their first win of the season next weekend in Pennsylvania as they play at Chatham next Friday at 7. The men's cross-country team came in 6th out of 9 teams in the SUNYAC Men's Cross Country Championship race Saturday in Milton, New York. The Blue Devils were led by senior Aiden Pollard, who finished 25th overall. Next up for the Blue Devils is the 2019 NCAA Atlantic Regional Meet on November 16th and at Canton, New York. And finally, the women's 9th place finish at the SUNYAC Championship race was the first meet in over 2 months. The Blue Devils had the required 5 runners to attain a team score. The meet concludes the end of the 2019 women's cross-country season, but on the bright side, they will not be losing any runners next season due to graduation. So now back to the professional side of hockey, Dustin. Before we get into the games, you want to tell us the 3 stars of the month?
Yeah, of course. October is done already, surprisingly. It's been a fast month, so we have a lot of hockey. It's been very talented with John Carlson, who leads the defensemen with 23 points. That's 7 goals and 16 assists in 14 games. Now the Caps are now 10-2-3, and they take first in the league. Leon Draisaitl of the Edmonton Oilers leads the NHL with 25 points, 12 goals, 13 assists in 14 games. The Oilers now are 10-4-1 and lead the Pacific. It's about time the Oilers are good. You know, they have a lot of first-round picks, so it's changing for them, but we'll see if it can lead into the postseason.
What year did Draisaitl get picked?
Draisaitl, if I'm not mistaken, that he was a 2017 pick.
Was he?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, because I remember he was in like a stacked draft class.
Yeah.
So like you said, it's cool that the Oilers are finally starting to turn the corner.
Finally, it's only been 12 years.
I think the Sabres are. But, you know, both teams have been suffering for so long.
Yeah.
And they have all these first-round draft picks, second-round picks, all these highly coveted picks that are finally starting to, like I said, hopefully turn the corner here.
Yeah, and speaking of good picks, David Pastrnak of the Boston Bruins, the Bruins now are 10-1-2, and they lead the Atlantic, and Pastrnak shares the league lead with 12 goals, but only netting 13 assists. Only.
So, yeah, he has 27 points to lead the league, and the Bruins are surging back into first like they do every year. I knew the Sabres lead over the Bruins wasn't going to last long because just every year the Bruins just are always there.
I don't know how they do it. Boston is a lucky town.
Yeah. Between them, the Patriots, Celtics, Red Sox. Oh, man. All right. Well, speaking of let's see here.
Rangers and Predators.
Yeah, the Rangers and Predators. Because the Bruins
embarrassed us, which we're not going to get into too much. But
Dustin's a Rangers fan, by the way.
After getting embarrassed by Pastrnak, we allowed 7 goals, but we managed to pull 2 back-to-back wins against fairly good teams. Tampa Bay Lightning, as everyone knows, had one of the best regular seasons in all of the history of the NHL, and we managed to score 4 goals against them, which is honestly very impressive. And on Sunday, we win against Nashville Predators. It was a 1-goal game, but it was very intense. Our third line are starting to show depth, which is what we always wanted for. We have a first-line center who's out, Mika Zibanejad, and now it was time for our depth players to show, and they honestly have. It's been very impressive. And, Henrik Lundqvist has not played, and we have Alexander Georgiev. And Rangers, we're spoiled with goalies. We have Henrik Lundqvist, who's a stud, and now with Alexander Georgiev, who honestly is getting coached by one of the best goalie coaches, Benoit Allaire. He only allows 2 goals in 2 games with a 97% save percentage. And, goalies are never really the problem. It's time for the defense to step up, I would say. And we're sneaking up to a neutral record with 5 wins, 5 losses. Fortunately, that 1 overtime loss puts us at 47%. But it's disappointing, but it's expected with a young team, and hopefully we get a lot more wins.
Now, I asked Josh this a week or two ago, I believe, but I'll ask you too because you're a Rangers fan. What are the expectations for the team this year? Are you guys, I know it's a rebuild year, but do you think the Rangers can contend for a wild card, maybe like a 7 or 8 seed, or do you think they're still a year or two away?
At first, wild card seemed very realistic. You know, we had Capo Caco. We have a lot of young players who can really step up. But, you know, like I said, Filipino, who was down in Hartford, who only just got called up again. It's been a slow process, and unfortunately our defense is still honestly a dumpster fire. You know, we have Brady Shea, Mark Stahl, who haven't been stepping up, and they were supposed to be our guys. And it just hasn't been working, but it's not quite the perfect 82-0 season that we were hoping for. But it's been okay.
Now, as for the other New York team, they are playing really well right now. They have won 9 in a row. One of them was against the Sabres, which is another game on our list here. The Islanders are they second now? Yeah, they're right behind. Well, they have 20 points, so
right.
They're second in the Metropolitan Division.
And
but
it hurts to see because, you know, as a Rangers fan, you never want to see your rivals doing good. And as much as I hate the Sabres, I hate the Islanders even more. So I was rooting for the Sabres to pull out the win, but they couldn't do it. That was their third loss in a row, and they were hoping to bounce back after that 6-1 loss against the Caps. But it was a tough matchup, like you said. They're on a win streak, and you know, when you're on a comeback game, you want to get that first goal, and unfortunately, they give up a fluky goal in the first 5 minutes, which honestly we just deflated the whole game, and you can tell that everyone wasn't really playing. Kruger was doing weird matchups, and Dahlin didn't have enough time, I personally believe, and well, we'll see. But like I said, offense didn't help either. They had 3 power plays, no goal on any of the power plays, so. Sabres are in a rut right now.
Yeah, I'm having flashbacks to last year when Sabres were in first and then they went down to the bottom. But it's way too early. I still have confidence in this team. I'm not one of those fans who's already giving up on them, but yeah. I can't help but not have flashbacks to after going through last year.
Of course, but I guess a positive is it was only their first loss at home. You know, so it means they have good. They're taking advantage of the home ice advantage, and so that's a positive. And they're gonna take this energy. They're gonna take what they can bring to the table to the global series when they're going to Sweden.
Yeah, they landed there today.
Yeah, and they have a lot of Swedes in Buffalo, and you know we have Olmark, you have Dahlin, you have Olofsson, right? And so it should be good for them, for the Sabres to land in Sweden, hopefully get a win. You know, do it for their people, do it for their town, you know what I mean? So it'll be good.
And the last game we have on our list here, Caps and Flames.
Honestly, this game was, I don't want to say a boring game because, you know, hockey's always fun, but it was just one that we knew that the Capitals were going to win, so it wasn't very exciting to see Jacob Vrana net a hat trick. What was interesting, though, Alex Ovechkin, who is one of the best players in the league, was -2 on the plus-minus. And but it was good that Jacob Vrana stepped up because now the Caps are even deadlier. Like, oh, their first line's down. Well, guess what? They have 3 more behind them to step up. And on the Flames side, it was very disappointing because Johnny Gaudreau, Johnny Hockey, you know, he only has 3 goals in the whole season, and it's time to step up if the Flames want to be a contender. So we'll see how it goes because as you saw in the last playoffs, Flames just aren't very good.
And did they lose to Colorado first round?
I can't recall at the moment, but they definitely lost, and it was an embarrassing loss because they could not get a win. They can't pull it together. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's mentally, maybe it's the talent, but who knows? Because Calgary has a good lineup on paper, but as we see a lot of the times, like with Tampa Bay Lightning, you know, you can have a good team on paper, but if the mindset's not there, if the coaching's not there, nothing really is going to happen.
And they did lose first round. I just checked to Colorado. They lost 4 games to 1. So
right, see,
they had a great year, and then Colorado just
they got to take a page. They got to take a page out of Colorado's book because Colorado now is one of the better teams in the league. Nathan McKinnon is lighting up in the league, and it seems to they seem to be gelling. You know, we don't get that with a lot of teams that now, like that we talked about, Rangers. We aren't really quite gelling just yet. The Sabres, they have been doing good with the Swedish connection, which is honestly a positive for the future. Like I said, the Global Series is going to be one to look out for to see how they're going to bounce back. And I honestly think they can do it. It pains me to say because I don't like the Sabres. But they're very impressive. You know, Golison, if he can light it up, if Jeff Skinner's doing what he's doing, Rasmus Dahlin, give him,
Eichel.
Yeah, Eichel, give Dahlin a few more ice time, and they can do big things. And like I said, it's coming from a Rangers fan, but you know, I got to give respect and credit where credit's due.
And real quick, before we end this segment, taking a quick look at the standings, we just talked about Washington. They have overtaken first place in the East and in the league, I believe. Just let me double check that. So they're 3 points up on the Bruins now for first in the league.
That's surprising. The race is going to be tight because the Bruins is just like the Capitals. They're always managed to be good, which is annoying. But it's like I said, it's the team. They're gelling. It's the coaching. They're gelling. You know, so we'll see.
Yeah. So the playoffs, as of now, obviously is still early, but Washington, the Islanders, and Carolina are the three teams in the Metropolitan Division. Boston, Buffalo, and Florida in the Atlantic, and then the two wildcard teams are Pittsburgh and Toronto. And then in the West, St. Louis, Nashville, and Colorado in the Central, Edmonton, Vancouver, and Anaheim in the Pacific, and then the two wildcard teams are Vegas and Calgary. So, Dustin, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, nice job. And next, we are going to talk some football with Aaron. So, come right back in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But you're thinking about taking the back roads home, just in case. If you're probably sober, then why would you do that? Good choice.
Probably okay isn't okay. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
That's a full glass of wine. I'll be chatting you later.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. And as soon as I start to make my breakfast, Hamilton is right there. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. I mean, look at this little face. How could you not love him?
It's me, Artie. Come see what I collected from the Creative Galaxy in my idea box.
Transform your world.
Will you help me make art?
Before you throw it away,
Hey, I have an idea.
think outside the box.
Go be amazing!
Give your cardboard box another life. Recycle.
Aaron Sember joins us now for the NFL segment. Aaron, I would assume you're doing pretty good. The Chiefs won yesterday.
Yeah, a wild one, but pulled away with it, you know. Harrison Butker, very good kicker. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, he is a he's emerged as one of the top kickers in the league.
I mean, he's like, I think it's his third season, and he's come along quite well since he's been here, like part of the Chiefs organization. So, which is good because he helped us get the win.
Yeah. So another game without Patrick Mahomes, but Matt Moore, the Mr.
I was at the football of 2018. I was on the Dolphins scouting team for Kyler Murray when he was, on his pro day, and now look at him. Great game.
I was going to say Mr. Journeyman, just
him too.
The classic, backup, but he's always been solid and comes through again.
I know. I mean, he had 275 yards, 1 touchdown, and, he obviously, it wasn't, marvelous numbers that we think, a lot of quarterbacks put up every week, but, he played exactly.
He doesn't have Mahomes numbers.
He played great, and, honestly, I was thinking to myself, he plays exactly, that was textbook, how a backup quarterback should play, And finally, the Chiefs, the running game recently was I don't even know. They've been obsolete until, this game. I mean, we obviously got LaShawn McCoy a couple of weeks ago, and I mean, me and Kevin, we were discussing.
Much, right?
He really hasn't done anything. But Damian Williams, he came back from injury, I think about, let me see, probably 3 or 2 weeks ago, and he's been coming along very strong. He had a 91-yard touchdown run actually yesterday, which was, it tied the Jamal Charles franchise run. So didn't beat it, but he also had 12 attempts for 125 yards and, like I said, that long touchdown run. And after coming back from injury, Tyreek Hill, he's been electric. He was definitely missing it when he was on the sidelines because, you always want to be out there. You know what I mean? He had 6 receptions, 140 yards, and a touchdown. And in my opinion, he really showed everyone how elusive and quick he really can be. Matt Moore, I think it was in the middle of the first quarter, and it was a 40-yard bomb down the right sideline, and he beat Trey Waynes, and basically he beat him by a long shot. And a lot of teams I've always noticed, they obviously cover different when they're covering someone like Tyreek Hill, who runs probably 4.2 speed, and then someone that's a big guy like Mike Evans or Julio Jones. I mean, he is fast, but he's more, I'm going to go jump up and beat your corner who's 5'9", you know what I mean? But Tyreek Hill, he's only 5'10", and, he's just electric. That's all I could say. He's crazy fast, and he's going to be a force in this league for a long time.
Next game we have Steelers and Colts. The Steelers hung on to this one.
Yeah.
Adam Vinatieri missed a potential game-winning field goal, and Pittsburgh took this 26-24.
He's also, Vinatieri hasn't been looking that good this year.
No, he's actually showing his age for once.
And
we've never seen that.
Yeah, of course, but you don't want to see him get released. But
they won't release him.
I mean, yeah, he's a
Vinatieri.
legend,
Yeah.
But another bad thing in this game was that Jacoby Brissett, we were praising him the last few weeks, but he actually got hurt early, which is obviously not a good sign for the Colts fans, and he stayed out the rest of the game. And speaking of journeyman,
Brian Hoyer.
Brian Hoyer, he almost got them the win, but like you said, Vinatieri missed the field goal, which would have given them the win, right? Was it a late? It was a minute left in the game, right?
A minute
Something
40,
like
I think.
that. Yeah, but it's sad. Brissett came along very well after Luck retired, and it's not it wasn't drastic. He'll probably play next week, but that's the scary. You know what I mean? You never want to see that, especially since your quarterback last year, who was a star, retired because of health issues and mental health and all that, and that's injury. That's all these injuries, and now you don't want to see your quarterback go down the same road and all that.
Next game, Bills and Redskins. Bills pick up another win, 24-9. The rushing game finally got going.
Yeah.
Devin Singletary, 20 rushes, 95 yards, and a touchdown. And it wasn't the prettiest win for the Bills. They kind of let Washington hang around until the fourth quarter, but they did enough, and a win's a win, and the Bills are 6-2.
I'm very excited because I could definitely see this Bills team. I mean, because you're never going to shut up if they go to the playoffs, but I could definitely see them going deeper than they did a couple years ago when they went to Jacksonville and lost. I watched that game and I realized the numbers of Bills fans there. There was more Bills fans than Jaguars fans, which was insane. I mean, obviously they haven't been to the playoffs, before that 19 or 17 years or something like that. So yeah, it was just crazy. So, I mean, I love the stuff they do, all the table jumping and all that stuff, but you got to feel excited for the Bills. What is this? I remember you mentioned the best start since '93.
Best start since 1993 when they went to the Super Bowl. So I will say the Bills had played a very favorable schedule, and they have a lot of, I guess you could say, poor teams that are upcoming on the schedule. But like I said, a win's a win. They're 6-2, and there are a lot of areas that they need to work on, because once they get to the better games down the stretch, they have Dallas, Baltimore, New England, and then hopefully if they do get in the playoffs, like I said, they have a lot to work on, but at the same time, they're tied for second in the AFC right now, so it feels good. And then speaking of Jacksonville, they lost badly to the Texans in London, 26-3.
It was very bad, and I think one of our fan favorites this year, Gardner Minshew. Sad to say this, but I think he's done. I think after the bye, Nick Foles is coming back, but he had a great trip these last few weeks, but
Minshew mania.
Yeah,
I was him for Halloween, if you could tell with the mustache.
Yeah, but he threw 2 picks basically in a row, and he threw 2 picks coming into all season when he was in. So basically, I don't know. Sad to say, but I think he's done, and Nick Foles is coming back after that broken collarbone or shoulder, one of those. So yeah.
Next game, Dolphins and Jets. Barn burner. Dolphins picked up their first win of the year, though.
Win. I mean, I saw this thing. It was like the Dolphins beat the Jets beat the Cowboys, so therefore the Dolphins are better than the Cowboys. I don't know. I found it funny, but, I didn't watch any of this game, but all I know is that they won, and that's obviously something to celebrate. Brian Flores, the head coach, I saw after the game that he got all the Gatorade dumped on him and all that, and, it's just a good sign, Obviously, this year is a throwaway year for the Dolphins, so yeah.
All right, well, just a couple minutes left. So Broncos beat the Browns 24-19. The Raiders beat the Lions 31-24. Ravens handed the Patriots their first loss of the year. Lamar Jackson was great, 37-20. And now going over to
let's head to the NFC.
Yeah, as you can see the stats right there. So Lamar Jackson was great. Mark Ingram was great. And the Ravens improved to 6-2. So as for the NFC, the Eagles beat the Bears 22-14. Jordan Howard had a great revenge
game against his former team.
Panthers and Kyle Allen once again beat the Titans 30-20.
The Titans are just so I can't even say it. They're just so inconsistent. One game Mariota's great, in one game, or Tannehill or whatever, whoever's playing. All I know is that they lost. So.
And the Seahawks. The Bucs gave them a scare, but the Seahawks,
they were down.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, they're in the OT, and I was like, really?
Yeah. So 40-34 was the final.
Yep.
And the Seahawks. Russell Wilson's putting up MVP numbers this year.
Yeah,
He's
of course.
Just so good. And last game that we're going to talk about, another guy that is putting up MVP numbers right now. At least, I don't know about the numbers, but at least
his team,
judging by his team record. Jimmy Garoppolo.
8-0, last undefeated team. Jimmy Garoppolo put up 317 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 0 picks. And Emmanuel Sanders, who came on he just got traded, and he had a good game. Kittle, good game. This team is scary. Arizona played their hearts out, They're a team that I think is going to be good in the next coming years.
Yes, so that remains to be seen. Thank you for coming on, Aaron. And next, we're going to have Myra on, talk some basketball.
I'll be right back. Hi. You think you're probably sober?
Yeah.
But you're thinking about taking the back roads home, just in case. If you're probably sober, then why would you do that? Good choice.
Probably okay isn't okay. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
That's a full glass of wine. I'll be chatting you later.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. And as soon as I start to make my breakfast, Hamilton is right there. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. I mean, look at this little face. How could you not love him?
It's me, Artie. Come see what I collected from the creative galaxy in my idea box.
Transform your world
Will you help me make art?
before you throw it away.
Hey, I have an idea.
Think outside the box.
Go be amazing!
Give your cardboard box another life. Recycle.
Our NBA analyst, Meyer Mikulski, joins us now. Meyer, what's happened in the basketball world this past week?
So first game on tap that we want to talk about is the Houston Rockets versus the Washington Wizards. The Rockets defeated the Wizards 159 to 158, the same night that the Washington Nationals defeated the Houston Astros in Game 7 of the World Series. The Rockets were led by James Harden, who scored 59 points on 18 of 32 shooting, with 3 rebounds and 9 assists, and Clint Capella, who scored 21 points on 9 of 13 shooting, with 12 rebounds and 2 blocks. Russell Westbrook also chipped in, recording a triple-double with 17 points, 10 rebounds, 12 assists to just 2 turnovers. And the Wizards were led by Bradley Beal, who scored 46 points on 14 of 20 shooting, 6 rebounds, and 8 assists, and rookie Rui Hachimura, who scored 23 points on 9 of 15 shooting with 5 rebounds.
I gotta be honest, I didn't even know about this game until after the fact, obviously, because I was watching the World Series, and then once I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, James Harden, 59 points, and what was the stat I saw? That through like the first 5 games, he scored 183 points.
Yeah, and he's the leading scorer as we speak right now.
Yeah, so was it 4 or 5 games that he had 183?
I believe it was 5.
That's insane. What's he averaging right now then?
He's averaging, I believe.
Got to be over 30.
Yeah,
right?
at least 30.
Man, seems like every year Harden just keeps getting better and better.
Yes.
And now he has Mr. Triple Double,
Yep.
Westbrook, so he's going to keep feeding him the ball. And they could be scary this year. That duo is scary because Russ is, like I said, Mr. Triple Double, and Harden can score at ease. So that's a scary combo down there.
The only question with them is what can they do in the playoffs? Because Westbrook and Harden are both known for their inconsistent play in the playoffs. So it's interesting to see what goes on when it gets to that time.
Another couple teams that people are interested to see what they'll do in the playoffs because I think we all would assume that they'll both make it, Milwaukee and Boston. And this game, the Celtics defeated the Bucks 116 to 105.
Yes, this was actually a playoff rematch. And the Celtics were led by Kemba Walker, who scored 32 points on 7 of 19 shooting, with 6 rebounds and 6 assists, and Jason Tatum, who scored 25 points on 10 of 22 shooting with 4 rebounds. Gordon Hayward also chipped in with 21 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists. The Bucks were led by Chris Middleton, who scored 26 points on 10 of 15 shooting, with 6 rebounds and 3 assists. Giannis Antetokounmpo was held to just 22 points on just 13 shot attempts, with 14 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 blocks.
Do you think Boston, they're going to be better or worse without Kyrie? Because basically they swapped in Kemba for Kyrie. So do you think that's an upgrade or a downgrade? Because obviously I think Kyrie's the better player, but he had so many, I guess, mental issues last year, and now, like I saw, there was a report that he's having, how'd they word it? He's going through like these weird phases in Brooklyn that's scaring people. So like, I almost felt like Kyrie kind of was a bad vibe for the locker room last year, and that's what prevented Boston from going anywhere. So do you think Kemba can take them to the next level?
I believe that Boston is actually worse than they were before, and it's not just because they lost Kyrie. It's also because they lost Al Horford and they lost Marcus Morris as well, and their bench isn't as deep as it used to be.
That's true. I forgot they lost those two, but I mean they still have a big three with Kemba, Tatum, Gordon Hayward. So,
but they have a lot of rookies coming off the bench.
Yeah, and Enes Kanter, he signed with Boston this year, right?
Yes.
Okay, so he kind of replaced Horford, so that's a good replacement too. So, yeah, the Celtics, they're like any other Boston team, they're going to win. So, you might as well just plan on them winning because no Boston team wants to lose, I guess, or can lose. So, next game, Heat and Hawks, 106-97 Miami.
The Heat were led by rookies Kendrick Nunn, who recorded 28 points on 10 of 15 shooting and 2 steals, and Tyler Hero, who scored 17 points on 7 of 16 shooting with 4 rebounds and 3 assists. Jimmy Butler was held to just 5 points on 2 of 10 shooting, but did a lot of the little things well. He recorded 9 rebounds, 11 assists, 6 steals, and 3 blocks. The Hawks were led by Jabari Parker, who scored 23 points on 8 of 13 shooting and 8 rebounds, and DeAndre Bembry, who scored 18 points on 8 of 12 shooting, 10 rebounds, and 8 assists. And John Collins was held to just 12 points on 4 of 11 shooting.
Miami's another interesting team this year, too, because I feel like they're kind of forgotten about, especially after, obviously, the big three broke up with LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. And they've always just kind of been there these last few years.
And they miss the playoffs like every other year, or they make it every other year.
Yeah. And now that Wade's gone, I think a lot of people forget that they have Jimmy Butler. And I think people forget how good Jimmy Butler can be because he's never really had a team to himself. In Chicago, he was with
Derrick
they had
Rose.
D Rose and
Joakim Noah.
Yeah, Boozer. They had a loaded team.
And Luol Deng too.
Yeah, Luol Deng, and he just announced his retirement officially, right?
Yeah, a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. And then in Philly last year, he Embiid, Simmons.
But he was their go-to guy in the clutch, though.
Yeah, but now he's like the guy.
Yes.
So I'm curious to see how far Jimmy Butler can lead a team by himself.
And I have an interesting fact about this game. The leading scorers for each team from this game, Jabari Parker and Kendrick Nunn, were actually high school teammates at Simeon Career Academy in Chicago, Illinois.
That's definitely interesting. Where did Kendrick Nunn go to college?
So at first he went to Oakland for, I believe, 3 years, but then he got dismissed from the team because of a battery charge. So then he had to transfer to Oakland. But he sat out a year first, and then he played in 2017-18. And he was actually the second leading scorer in college basketball behind Trae Young.
Really?
Yes.
Wait, you said he transferred to Oakland or from Oakland?
Transferred to Oakland from Illinois.
Oh, from Illinois, okay. All right, yeah, I remember hearing his name, but I couldn't remember exactly where he came from. So, let's see, the next game we have here, Clippers and Spurs. Kawhi returned to San Antonio and defeated his old team 103-97.
The Clippers were led by former Spur Kawhi Leonard, who scored 38 points on 15 of 32 shooting with 12 rebounds and 4 steals, and Montrezl Harrell, who recorded 24 points on 9 of 11 shooting with 4 rebounds. The Spurs were led by DeMar DeRozan, who scored 29 points on 13 of 21 shooting with 7 rebounds but had 7 turnovers, and Derek White, who scored 20 points on 6 of 11 shooting and 5 rebounds. LaMarcus Aldridge was held to just 5 points on 2 of 8 shooting and 5 rebounds.
Yeah, so obviously that game was going to have some extra tension with Kawhi returning.
Yes.
And he had a nice moment with Greg Popovich after the game. They were hugging each other and smiling. So I don't think there's any hard feelings for Kawhi in San Antonio, do you?
I think
there probably are some.
Yeah, I think there were, but I think it faded away now that he's on a different team.
Yeah, it's definitely not like when LeBron left Cleveland for Miami and he got booed like crazy. So it's not like that. But I didn't see or hear about the player interest. Did they boo him or did they cheer for him?
I didn't watch the game, to be honest. I saw the highlights, though.
I wonder, I bet there was a little bit of a mix in there, too. But now he's such a national treasure that everyone just loves him with all the, well, I won't do all of his antics on here, but you guys know the memes and all that.
Yeah.
Last game. This is a really good game. It was on ESPN Friday night.
Yes.
Lakers and Mavericks. And Lakers with Danny Green.
Yeah.
LeBron pulled out another trick out of his hat, and I was like, what are you doing? You need a three and you're driving baseline, but he found Danny Green, and one of the most clutch shooters in the game tied it up, went into overtime, and the Lakers took this one.
Yes, so the Lakers were led by LeBron James, who recorded a triple-double with 39 points on 13 of 23 shooting with 12 rebounds, 16 assists, and 4 steals. And Anthony Davis, who scored 31 points on 15 of 28 shooting with 8 rebounds, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. Danny Green also chipped in with 14 points on 3 of 6 3-point shooting, including a 1 to 4 overtime, like Kevin mentioned. And FYI, Dwight Howard did get away with a hold on Seth Curry for that shot. And the Mavericks were led by Luka Doncic, who recorded a triple-double himself with 31 points on 10 of 23 shooting, with 13 rebounds and 15 assists. Kristaps Porzingis was held to just 16 points on 6 of 16 shooting and 9 rebounds after a hot start to the game.
All right, well, I think that will do it, but I have to say real quick, my Knicks finally got a win. They beat Chicago a week ago tonight, 105-98. So the Knicks have been in every game. They just haven't been able to pull out the victory. But I like R.J. Barrett and Bobby Portis, too, former Bull. He's been playing well. So Knicks get their first win. So thanks for coming on, Meyer. And next, Mac is going to come on and talk about the World Series, which was literally a fall classic.
I'll be right back. Hi. You think you're probably sober?
Yeah.
But you're thinking about taking the back roads home, just in case. If you're probably sober, then why would you do that? Good choice.
Probably okay isn't okay. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
That's a full glass of wine. I'll be chatting you later.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. And as soon as I start to make my breakfast, Hamilton is right there. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. I mean, look at this little face. How could you not love him?
It's me, Artie. Come see what I collected from the creative galaxy in my idea box.
Transform your world.
Will you help me make art?
Before you throw it away,
Hey, I have an idea.
think outside the box.
Go be amazing!
Give your cardboard box another life. Recycle.
Mac Clune joins us now to talk about the World Series. But, Mac, first of all, I have to ask, what do you think of that Bills game yesterday? Mac went to his first Bills game. We went together also with Ryan Blotto, who's behind the scenes tonight. So what do you guys think?
We had a great time. It didn't take my mind off the fact that we were wrong about our World Series prediction. We were not right. Unfortunately, we cannot take home the prize for the Fall Classic, but we tried our best, and we got pretty close, I would say. Who could have predicted what actually happened, I guess is the best way to say it.
No one. I don't think anyone well, I'm sure there were a few people, at least Nationals fans, that predicted that they would win the World Series. Mm-hmm. But I don't think anyone could have guessed that the away team was going to win every single game.
Every single game. First time it's ever happened in World Series history, which is not surprising at all that that's the first time it's ever happened. It's ridiculous that it even happened at all. Every single away game, the team took it, and it wasn't even like it was close. Every single time the team was away, they would win dominantly. So the MVP of the series was Steven Strasburg, who won for his performance in Game 2 and 6. I said last show that we had that it was a huge task for Steven Strasburg. They had to win 2 games coming back home, and they won 2 games coming back home. That's largely due to the efforts of Steven Strasburg, who had an amazing Game 6. His final line was 8 1/4 innings completed, 2 hits, 2 earned runs, and 7 strikeouts. So he definitely dominated the Astros in a moment that they needed him to most.
That was just a dominant performance from Strasburg. And Anthony Rendon, so clutch. I mean, it seems like I was kind of thinking he would get MVP because it seemed like whenever the Nationals needed a hit, Rendon he would get it for him. Like, he was just so clutch. Him and Juan Soto. I believe they batted back to back, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So every time they came up, you just knew something good was going to happen.
They were definitely their 2 most important bats. Rendon's an interesting question for the now champion Nationals because they're wondering they don't have him anymore. He's a free agent right now, so they have to sign him back. And just recent news, Steven Strasburg is also a free agent, declining his 4-year, $25 million a year deal, $100 million in total. So he's a free agent now. And the Nationals are kind of left wondering, well, we have this championship team. We were big spenders, but where do we go from here? Interestingly enough, there are rumors now that Strasburg is happy in the Nationals organization. He does want to re-sign, but it's still questionable if they're going to have the money to make both Strasburg and Rendon work.
Yeah, I think this is definitely the peak for Washington. I mean, well, obviously you can't get any higher than the World Series, but I don't think they're going to be nearly as good as they were this year, just because of the fact that they're the oldest team in the league, and they have so many guys like Rendon and Strasburg who are going to test out free agency, and guys like Howie Kendrick and Asdrubal Cabrera, and who's the other one? Brian Dozier even. They just so many veterans and older guys that some of them are going to retire, some are going to sign with other teams, some are going to get traded. So I think we're going to see Washington go back to their old ways of being in the bottom of the division. And it's kind of symbolic of what's happened over the years. I mean, Kansas City made the World Series a couple years.
It's so hard to make the World Series twice. It's so hard to win the World Series twice. You saw it with the Dodgers these last 2 years. They made it twice, but they didn't win it either time. And then, furthermore, the Astros, who it's not back-to-back, but they made it back to the World Series through an amazing roster, incredible depth, and then they didn't win a single home game, and they lost the entire thing. So that's how hard baseball is. Interestingly, you're talking about the veterans. The Astros did some moves yesterday and this afternoon, trying to alleviate some of the pressure on their financials. So they declined Ryan Zimmerman's option, who's been like a cornerstone for them. His $18 million they declined, and they're going to probably bring him back as a team presence at a much cheaper rate. And then they also took Yan Gomes' $9 million option completely off the track. So they have some money to work with to get Steven Strasburg and Rendon, and those are their 2 big name agents that if they can get both of those people back, they can potentially make it maybe another run next year at the World Series. But like you said, it's so hard to do, and few teams have done it.
Yeah, and we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Game 7 too, because that was amazing. That was one of the best games, and honestly, this is one of the best World Series that I've ever watched. So I don't know, I can't speak on the ones before I was born 20 years ago, but yeah, it was a true fall classic. And I just got home, and I turned the TV on, and that's when it was Howie Kendrick, right, in the 7th inning? That go-ahead home run. I was like, oh, my God, are you kidding me? Like, he comes through again.
And he was amazing in the NLCS, and he came through again. There was one thing that was very important in this game, and it was a decision that a lot of people disagreed with, and that was pulling Greinke in inning 7 with 80 pitches. So what did you think of that?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier in the semester. Just don't overthink. Just if he's throwing good, leave him in.
Astro Ball didn't work out this time, unfortunately.
Say it again?
Astro Ball didn't work out this time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
AJ Hinrich unfortunately messed up, and it cost them the World Series.
Yeah, so the Nationals were just there was no quit in them. They just kept fighting, and it got them a World Series. So thanks for coming on, Mac. Well, actually, you're staying on, and Crescenzo's coming on, too. We're going to bring some UFC back to Sports Hour.
I'll be right back. Hi. You think you're probably sober?
Yeah.
But you're thinking about taking the back roads home, just in case. If you're probably sober, then why would you do that? Good choice.
Probably okay isn't okay. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
That's a full glass of wine. I'll be chatting you later.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. And as soon as I start to make my breakfast, Hamilton is right there. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. I mean, look at this little face. How could you not love him?
It's me, Artie. Come see what I collected from the creative galaxy in my idea box.
Transform your world.
Will you help me make art?
Before you throw it away,
Hey, I have an idea.
think outside the box.
Go be amazing!
Give your cardboard box another life. Recycle.
And welcome back to Sports Hour. I'm your host today, Matt Clune. I'm here with Crescenzo Fano, who hasn't been on in a while. He's our lead producer, but he's jumped on to talk about one of the best cards of the year, UFC 244. And you have to say UFC 244 definitely delivered about the hype.
The one thing before I even get started is that I did not get intoxicated. I'm 22, don't worry, everyone. I did not get intoxicated for this card, and I'm so glad I did, because this was one of the best cards I think ever. Like, not only ever, but definitely this year, and in a very long time.
For sure. This card was really hyped up. It had an amazing prelim card. It had an amazing top 5 for the main card. And honestly, it felt like every single fight delivered a ton of knockouts, insane action throughout it. Even the fights that you thought might have been a little bit more boring, completely delivered. It was a phenomenal card, and I haven't seen a card like this deliver like this maybe ever, honestly.
I mean, every fight on paper was great. And
then they were great.
Yeah.
And when you watched it,
they
it
were
was
better
great.
than ever. So
Yeah.
it was like, what can you really say about it? But let's dive right into it. I mean, the main event, Jorge Masvidal, Nate Diaz, battle of the BMF belt. I can't say what BMF stands for because we are on FCC.
You can figure it out.
Yeah, just look it up, okay?
Yep.
Understand? Anyway,
This isn't pay-per-view, unfortunately.
Yeah, this was a pay-per-view. And I know for me, I was okay with the doctor stoppage. So Jorge Masvidal was dominating all 3 rounds. I mean, I know I was at your house watching it, and I was analyzing it, and it was pretty much just, when I was watching it, I'm like, Nate Diaz can't deal with the power, and he can't deal with the accuracy of Jorge Masvidal. And that's something that no one in his career has ever been able to do with Nate Diaz.
Yep.
And that's why it was more impressive.
It became really obvious in this matchup, I feel, that this is just a bad matchup for Nate Diaz. It feels like he's a younger, more athletic, just as durable version of Nate Diaz. And as the fight kept going, it just felt like Diaz, he had 2 extra rounds to work with if it wasn't for the doctor stoppage. But even with that, I think that Masvidal would have taken this fight.
Yeah, I believe
he was
so.
really beating him up in this fight. It felt like constant.
And even though the stats do not say, like if you go to the UFC app and it'll say that Nate Diaz has all the stats and all the punches in his favor. The power, though, is something that it's almost like Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier when they fought. You can see the power difference, and when you saw that power difference, holy cow. I mean, he was a completely different fighter, and that's something that I think he really saw when it came to Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal.
I felt like this was probably the most I've ever seen Nate Diaz hurt in a fight. I felt just constantly he felt like he was getting hurt, he was getting rocked. It was pretty obvious that Masvidal's punches were really affecting Nate.
Yeah.
So, and it ended with the doctor's stoppage for the cut on Diaz's right eyebrow, which was a pretty nasty cut, I have to say. When you really got a close-up of it, it looked brutal, it was bloody, and I think that the doctor had a good point in stopping it.
I believe so too, and something that we really didn't even take a part of when we were watching it is that Dominic Cruz, a commentator, said that the doctor should know who's fighting in there. I believe that is completely false. The doctor should not know and should not have a bias of who is fighting in the octagon. Well, hello, he's a health professional. He's not supposed to care who is fighting. If it's Conor, if it's Nate, if it's Jorge, it doesn't matter. He's there to protect the fighter. So I felt like that was completely wrong, and I felt like that was so out of line for Dominic to even say that, because now the doctor's getting hate mail and threats to his family, and that's a disgrace. He's there to protect the fighters, and the fact that he did that, I'm sorry.
I felt he did a good job with it on that fight. So Masvidal takes the fight with a 3-round TKO via doctor's stoppage. On to the next fight, co-main. You can say this maybe is the one fight that didn't quite deliver, and that's Kevin Gastelum versus Darren
And
Till.
it was still a good fight.
Yeah,
like,
still a solid fight.
You know, comparing it to the card, it wasn't as good. But if you look at the fight itself, it wasn't like a Woodley and Stephen Thompson 2, where literally one punch wins the fight for you. I thought that Kelvin, as someone who's a big Kelvin fan, I thought he came out very flat. I thought he came out very...
Yeah, I felt he was flat.
Very cocky about himself. And when I was studying this co-main event, this is at 185 pounds where Darren Till is moving up. Anyone that moves up to me and faces a top 5 opponent, top 6, top 5, they have been getting knocked out or losing. Kevin Lee, who we're going to discuss later, moves back down to 55 or 155 pounds. I just
looks better than ever.
Yeah, right. And we're going to get into that. Chris Weidman a couple weeks ago and Luke Rockhold.
Yeah.
And it's
bad knockouts too, all nasty knockouts. And this is Darren Till, who's coming right back from a bad knockout by main eventer George Masvidal.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think this is a really bad loss for Calvin. I didn't think Till looked overly impressive in that fight. I think that Calvin just looked really bad when it came to his offense, his strategy. I don't know what to make of it, but I totally know that Kelvin was not good in that fight.
Yeah, and to give some credit to Darren Till, I didn't think Darren Till was completely impressive in this fight, but I definitely did think that he used his range to his advantage. He didn't get knocked out. He played a pretty smart defensive game. So,
and that's the first time in his career that he has ever played the safe game.
Yeah.
He's the guy who goes in and is a more aggressive Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Tonight, or Saturday night, it was not the case. He had an injury, and maybe that was it. He was also very nervous.
Yeah.
And that's something that Kelvin had to harp on. And there were rumors about it, and he didn't even harp on it. So this is a really bad loss for Kelvin, I think.
Yeah.
Something that I think he goes down almost to maybe the 10 range, I think, in the rankings, to be honest. I think it was that bad of a loss to lose to Till like this.
Yeah, I definitely did not think it was a good fight for Kelvin Gastelum.
No.
And looking into the next fight, we're going on to Johnny Walker versus Corey Anderson. This is another huge shocker. It was a night of hype trains being derailed, and this is another one getting derailed.
This one wasn't in the main event. This was in the prelims. But I will say that Corey Anderson came out like a lightning in a bottle. I'll just keep it simple that Johnny Walker kept his hands down. He didn't keep his hands up, got caught with the right hand, and Corey Anderson knocked him out. But I think the question really to ask is that, is he the next in line for title? I'm going to say no, still. The guys that he's beaten recently in his 3-4 fight win streak are not even in the top 5.
And that's the thing with Johnny Walker, is people are acting like this is such an insane win, and it is. It's a really impressive win that he was able to take out this prospect that's been so highly hyped. But you have to look at this and you have to realize that Corey Anderson was not a highly ranked guy. He was a prospect that was stringing together impressive wins, but he didn't quite get to the high-ranking guys yet. And when he fought Corey Anderson, a guy who you could consider a gatekeeper, a guy you can consider a mid-ranked, high-level fighter, who's had some good wins recently, but he hasn't been able to beat the best, and Johnny Walker loses, you have to realize that this is not as impressive of a win as it initially seems.
No, I think so. I mean, I was one with the Johnny Walker train.
Yep, me too, totally.
And I think his length is reach his weird style, but the fact that he was a former dancer, by the way. But anyway, just a weird guy. And Corey Anderson just came out with a lightning, or with the fire underneath his butt, and that was impressive. I think, though, Dominic Reyes in 205 pounds deserves that title shot. I think he's beaten much better names, even though the Uzumir fight was iffy. But I'm going to segue right into the next one because, honestly, that was the heartbreak. That one broke me as a guy from Strawn Island and someone who, oh, man, I hate to be right, but I called it. I said that Kevin Lee was going to beat Gregor Gillespie because of him moving camps, and boy, I never been more disappointed in my life being right.
Not a great night for Strong Island, I have to say. That was a brutal knockout. That's the kind of knockout that you see on ESPN Top 10. It transcends just the MMA world, and everybody's watching it. It was a brutal head kick KO in the first round by Kevin Lee, who looked really good in that fight, you have to say.
And I think, before we wrap it up, I think the one thing really to take away from this is that the one factor that no one was talking about was changing camps. And when he changed camps, he went to where George St. Pierre trains. And I said it from day one. I said, people are not going to recognize it, and people are going to somehow, in some way, put Gregor as the real favorite when I think there's a gut feeling that Kevin Lee's going to come out with as a brand new fighter. And boy, did he look like on top of the world.
Yeah, well, Gregor Gillespie was 13-0 beforehand, right?
Yep.
So he's undefeated and
a wonderful wrestler. So
yeah,
you know, a four-time national champ, or excuse me, not a national champ, four-time All-American and national champ at Edinburgh. And the way that Kevin Lee looked, boy, I would be scared of anyone at 155 pounds.
Yeah, it looks like going to TriStar was extremely beneficial for him, training with George St. Pierre and Firas Sahabi. And that's it for the show we have today. Thank you for joining us on Sports Hour. Thank you, Crescenzo, for coming on.
Feels good to be back.
It was a great card and a great show, so we will see you next week.